What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another movie review. I'm Chase Lee, and the movie I want to take a look at right now is Lone Star Deception. Now, this one comes from Tri-Coast Entertainment. It is directed by Don Okolo and Robert Peters, and this one stars Eric Roberts. He's the big name in this one, but this isn't about him. It's about the character Tim Bay, played by... Anthony Ray Parker. I got to use a cheat sheet for this movie because there's just a lot of names involved that I have to specifically call out. But yes. So Eric Roberts, his nephew, was running for governor. Something happens with a prostitute. He's blackmailed. He has to get out of the race. And so they select Tim Bay to be the candidate to replace him. And he would be the first black governor of Texas if he wins. And so as he's running for governor, a bunch of things are happening. He has to kill a bunch of people. There's a bunch of mob-like stuff happening in the story. And according to IMDb, I'm not joking, this is how someone listed this movie plot-wise. Thrust into circumstances he neither understands nor controls, Tim weaves his way past assassination attempts and faces his own demons as he has to decide to quit the race, ride a wave to the state house, or die trying. Absolutely hilarious. Anyways, I've never heard about this movie, but I thank the people at Tri-Coast Entertainment for reaching out to me. I will always give the time to review smaller films and get the word out there if this is a movie that interests you, whether my review be good or bad. So just keep that in mind, but I'm glad to get it out there into the public just in case if someone is interested. With that said, this movie is awful. Now, I will go out on a limb and say this. It is not a bad movie to where it's just bad and I didn't enjoy it. This is a bad movie that I enjoyed on many different levels. And I would equate it to The Room. That's the best compliment I can give it. I love The Room. It's a trash movie, but I love it. And I think my voice is cracked. I think that this one, Lone Star Deception, can find a kind of a market for those type of films that are so bad it's good ones, I guess. But even if it's a bad movie, I can still enjoy it just because of how ridiculous it is or how horribly acted it is. I can find something to enjoy about it. So I will say that this one is like the equivalent to The Room, and I enjoyed it. It's a bad movie, but I enjoyed it. So I got to break this down into compartments because every single one of them are terrible. But let's start with the script. As far as schlocky entertainment of, because this stuff, it's ridiculous. When you watch it play out, you're like, this is something that would never happen. This guy, Tim, is forced into a life of crime. He's killing people. And he's just nonchalant about oh, I killed someone. This is weird. All right, I guess I'll still run for governor. And I don't know, just everything about it. It's happening in this small town, and they're acting like gangsters, and you just don't get a sense that they could get away with all this. And the story is absolutely absurd. If you were to placed it on a Lifetime channel, that been the movie of the week, it probably would have fit because it was so corny and so soap opera-y that you just couldn't believe anything that was happening. Nothing was said in any type of realism. So there's that. The dialogue is terrible. Some of the lines uttered by these people are just downright hilarious. Some of them acting tough, saying these lines, it sounds like a kid wrote it. Some of the lines that are uttered when they're shot, when people are shot, are just absolutely hilarious in the way they're delivered in their performance. The dialogue is not this movie's friend. But honestly, the story and the dialogue are the least of its worries. Let's start with the directing. I got a sense that these directors didn't really know how to make a cohesive film. Every single scene feels so different from what we've seen before and what we were going to see after it. It didn't feel like the same movie. From the way it was shot, well, actually, the cinematography was pretty consistent in it being just all over the place. But the lighting made every single scene so radically different. It didn't feel like the same movie, so there was no structure to it. And it didn't feel like there was any type of vision for it. It was just getting these kind of mediocre to bad performances out of these actors, quickly setting up a shot and let's move on type of deal. It just feels like this whole thing was rushed and there was no kind of time or care put into it. I'm sure if the directors are watching this, they're probably like, F you, like I put in so much time in this, and that's cool. But this felt like a student film. I was in film school. I made a lot of terrible ones. Actually, they were all terrible. And I realized that making a movie is tough. Production is difficult. I get all that. But this movie felt like a one take wonder type of deal per scene, and let's move on. And the lighting is not consistent. Doesn't have a voice throughout this entire thing. It's just all random all over the place. And that includes the cinematography. There was just no direct vision for this thing. And then let's just bleed into the performances. The performances are terrible. Every single one of them. Eric Roberts is always hammy in these kind of low budget movies, but man, he really goes there. Some of the lines are just make you cringe. You're just like, why is he saying it like that? It's just so weird. Why are we being weird? Anthony Ray Parker, the guy that plays Tim, like he's probably the best one out of the bunch. It's not really saying much, but everyone else is just either doing some type of like stereotypical Texas accent. They're saying their lines with weird pauses. They're just delivering it with, I don't know, like it's just, some shots like they'll deliver their line and it'll stay on them for like a couple seconds longer, and it's just awkward silence and not really clear direction in terms of where they should go after they say their line. So it's edited poorly too, but like, yeah, all these performances, man, were just, they're laughable, and some of them were really funny on that note, but you're not supposed to laugh at them because people are just getting shot and people are yelling a lot in this movie, but you can't help but not laugh. But yeah, I just thought all those performances were pretty weak. So let's talk about the cinematography, because this is where I have my main issue with the film. As I said before, the cinematography and the lighting in this film, not consistent, and it's just kind of all over the place, like almost like they didn't know how to shoot this thing or they didn't storyboard it out. So they just kind of shot with whatever was around them, and it didn't look right. Some of the handy cam was really atrocious in following cars and making the action more intense than it was. It just looked sloppy. But the lighting was without a doubt the worst thing about this film. Probably next to the score. We'll get to that. But the lighting was atrocious. The shadows were so harsh, didn't really make sense with the scene. Colors were injected in random places. Every single scene was lit differently. There was a lot of inside shots that relied on sunlight to overblow the scene. There were inside shots that relied on like warm, kind of weird fluorescent lighting that just looked like a cheap movie. It made everything look cheap. When they actually lit a scene, everything was so harsh on their faces and it looked like a set. Make it blend in more. It just like it's just try harder. It kind of made me angry. Like every single scene was different. So there was no structure to it. So it didn't look like the same movie. Even in the same scene early on when Tim is talking with like all these other people in the room, every time when they would flip to another person in the shot, it was lit differently. They're in the same scene. They're in the same room. It didn't even look like they were there or a part of it. So it doesn't, just watching, you know what I'm talking about. But it frustrated me to no end how nothing was consistent. Nothing. It didn't make this movie come together as one. It separated into several chunks. And was just like, here's this scene. It's got weird lighting. It's harsh. And then the next scene is just like, daylight lighting. And it didn't look right. Just everything about it just seemed so amateur. Just why? Sorry I'm getting frustrated. It's just, try harder. Yeah, the lighting was all over the place, and that was probably the worst. This thing is edited very awkwardly. A lot of transitions between scenes are just, they don't flow well. They're just awkward. And I know editing is also tough. Like, you need to time it out perfectly. If you leave a shot on too long or too short, it's very noticeable when it cuts to the next shot or blends in and fades out into another scene. It's super obvious. And this film has plenty of those shots where it's just awkward, where there's no direction. Someone says a line and it stays on that shot for a couple seconds longer, but they're not really doing anything with their faces and it's not really evoking any type of emotional oomph. So you're just sitting there watching this awkward thing and someone needed to cut it sooner or cut it or do something different. I don't know, just... And probably the second worst thing about this... by the way, and speaking of the editing, it made this movie feel like 5 hours. Like, it was enjoyable, but I got tired towards the end. I was like, can we just wrap this up, please? And its hour and a half runtime felt like a day watching it. The music was also bad. It felt like stock music. It literally sounded like The Room. That's why I'm making those comparisons. This ominous kind of like horns playing in the background. Then random piano keys are just hitting. It sounded like The Room. And it also, I would compare it to when I'm at my friend's house and we're drinking and he just randomly plays on the piano and does these like drunken riffs on the piano. That's what it felt like. It felt like they were just randomly placing stuff and it just didn't make sense for the scene. Some stuff would be overly dramatic in the music and it's not really matching with what the tone is in the scene. Or even high, like the music is supposed to like be an extra layer to the scene. So if someone's having a very dramatic scene, the music is supposed to accompany it. It's overpowering it to make you like feel bad for these characters. It's like, no, because the acting's bad. But it felt like stock music. And, you know, I was explaining to one of my friends, like, what this music was like. He was like, yeah, it kind of sounds like stock music. So I was like, yeah, he's right. It sounds like something you get off of a free website and just run with it. But I enjoyed myself, though. As much as I was frustrated, I did have a fun time watching this train wreck. It's a bad movie. I give it a D. It's not a failure by any means. I would not give it that coveted F score. But I will say it's a strong D for me for Lone Star Deception. Not everyone in Texas talks like that, by the way. I live in Texas. I don't have an accent. But yeah, just some of the accents in this were really funny. But yeah, so what did you guys think of Lone Star Deception? Am I blowing this out of proportion, or is this a great movie in your opinion? Please let me know down below. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and like this video so you can get updates on whatever I review. And let me know everything down below. Call me an idiot if you have to, especially if the filmmakers worked on this. They probably watch this and want to punch me. Fair. Do what you got to do. So that will do it for this review, guys. I'm Chase Lee, and tune in next time for whatever I review next. I will see you guys later.